He was a millionaire with charm, power, and a cruel sense of humor. She was the last woman he ever expected to notice, let alone choose. But when he made her the target of a social prank, she agreed to play along. With one secret, she already knew. What began as a joke unraveled into a battle of wits, pride, and unexpected love, until the woman he underestimated flipped the script and stole his heart. The rooftop bar shimmered with gold light, the kind that only money could buy. Laughter echoed against the marble pillars, ice clinked in crystal glasses, and expensive cologne hung in the air like invisible armor. Everyone there looked perfect, or tried to. Across the table, Brandon Chase leaned back in his seat with the ease of someone who had never been told no. He was the heir to a tech empire, young, sharply dressed, and as arrogant as he was attractive. His smile came too easily. So did his boredom. You want a real challenge? His best friend, Tyler, leaned in with a smirk, swirling his drink. I dare you to ask someone completely out of your league. Brandon raised an eyebrow. Out of my league? You mean someone richer than me? Tyler chuckled. No, I mean, someone you would never normally talk to. Someone who would never be seen in this room. The others laughed. It was all just a game to them. Brandon, always one to perform, spread his hands wide. All right, pick the target. Tyler glanced toward the edge of the bar, where a woman sat alone. She was not dressed to impress. She wore a simple blue blouse, a canvas tote at her feet. Her hair was tied back casually. She was overweight, clearly did not belong to their world, and seemed entirely uninterested in it. Tyler said. Let's see what happens when Prince Brandon tries to charm someone outside the palace. Brandon followed his gaze and let out a low whistle. Seriously? Tyler leaned in. Come on. What is the worst that could happen? Make her fall. For you. Film a few dates. Turn it into a social experiment. You will get 1 million views. Brandon hesitated just long enough to pretend it mattered. Then he stood, adjusted his watch, and walked toward her. She was sipping water and scrolling on her phone when she noticed him. Her eyes flicked up once, calm, cool, unreadable. Mind if I sit? He asked with a practiced smile. She looked at the empty stool beside her, then back at him. You can sit, she said, voice soft but direct. But if you are selling anything, I already have too much nonsense in my life. Brandon laughed, slightly thrown off. No pitch. Just curious why someone like you is here. She raised an eyebrow. Someone like me? Brandon fumbled, backpedaling. I mean, someone real. She let him squirm a little longer before smiling. Not a warm smile. A knowing one. Well then, she said. Pull up a seat, Mr. Real Curious. He did. And in that moment, what Brandon did not know, what none of them knew, was that the woman they chose for their joke had just flipped the script. She already knew, and she was going to play along on her terms. Brandon had sat across from hundreds of women in his life. Most smiled too quickly, laughed too easily, leaned in a little too much. He was used to admiration, used to control. But this woman, he still did not know her name, sat across from him like she already had him figured out. He ordered a drink for both of them without asking. When it arrived, she pushed hers gently aside. I do not drink with strangers, she said calmly. Fair, Brandon replied. Then let us not be strangers. I am Brandon. She smirked, unimpressed. Of course you are. Brandon raised an eyebrow. Of course. You have that look. Like the world applauded the day you were born, and you never stopped hearing the echo. That made him laugh. Not out of comfort, but surprise. It had been a long time since someone dared speak to him like that. You are sharp, he said. Most people do not see through me that fast. Most people are trying too hard to be seen. She picked up her glass of water, took a sip, then looked him dead in the eye. But I am not most people. He leaned forward, intrigued. So who are you? She tilted her head. Why do you want to know? Brandon hesitated. For the first time that night, he felt the ground shift under him. I am just curious. Curiosity, she said, can be kind, or it can be a weapon. A silence fell between them, but it was not awkward. It was deliberate, controlled. She had changed the tempo of the evening, and Brandon was no longer sure who was leading the dance. She looked around the bar, then back at him. Let me guess, she said, tapping her finger on the table thoughtfully. You are rich, bored, and tired of girls who only pretend to care about your thoughts. He blinked. And tonight, she continued, you are playing some kind of game. Maybe your friends dared you to talk to the weird girl at the end of the bar. Maybe you thought it would be funny, or noble, or enlightening. Brandon chuckled, trying to regain control. You are very dramatic. She shrugged. I have to be. Men like you do not usually approach me unless there is a camera rolling or a punchline coming. He swallowed hard. And yet, you let me sit here. She smiled again, that same half-knowing, half-amused expression. Because I am curious. Too. He blinked again. About what? About how long you can keep up the act. Brandon opened his mouth, then closed it. She picked up her water and took another sip, graceful and calm. He noticed now how steady her hands were, how direct her posture remained. She was not trying to hide herself, her body, her voice, her opinions. She sat in full ownership of space, of presence. Do you always talk like this? He asked. She nodded. Only with people who think they are the smartest person in the room. He laughed, genuinely this time. Okay, you have a name. She looked at him for a long moment. Mallory, she said finally. Mallory, he repeated. Well, Mallory, can I take you to dinner? She raised one eyebrow. Are you asking because you are hungry, or because the bet says 3 dates minimum? Brandon froze. Mallory leaned forward, eyes gleaming. I am not stupid, she said, voice low but steady. You think I do not notice the sideways glances? The way your friend filmed you walking over here? The way you keep checking your phone? Under the table? He lowered his gaze. Busted. Mallory leaned back, smiling, almost sweetly. But here is the thing. I am not offended. You are not. She shook her head. Nope. I am entertained. Now he was confused. I figure, she continued. If you are going to play a part, I might as well enjoy the show. And what part are you playing? He asked cautiously. She grinned. The girl who flips the script. The bartender walked by and handed them a dessert menu. Brandon stared down, unsure what to say next. Mallory took it and scanned it casually. So tell me, how does the prank end? With me crying into a napkin, or storming out dramatically while your friends laugh from behind a screen? His throat tightened. I had not thought that far, he admitted. Well, she said, folding the menu and placing it neatly on the table. You are lucky I like rewriting bad plots. They stayed another hour. And in that hour, she told him about her job as a librarian, her love for crossword puzzles and old jazz records, her dislike of small talk and her weakness for good tiramisu that he listened more than he spoke. And for the first time in a long time, Brandon Chase forgot he was supposed to be filming a prank, because Mallory was not just clever. She was magnetic, and he had no idea what he was getting into. Their third meeting was at a quiet restaurant tucked between two bookstores. Mallory chose the place that IT was not fancy. No gold-plated menus. No valet parking. Just the scent of fresh basil and handwritten specials on a chalkboard. Brandon showed up early, for once. He had deleted the group chat. He had not told his friends he was still seeing her, that he no longer felt like he was playing. Mallory arrived wearing a green dress that made her eyes look sharper, brighter. She slid into the booth across from him and smiled. Surprised I showed up again. A little, he admitted. She glanced at the flickering candle between them. Me too. Dinner started light. She told him about a girl who tried to return a library book after microwaving it to disinfect it. He told her about a failed app launch that crashed because someone forgot to code for leap years. They laughed easily, like they had known each other longer than they had. But the shift came with dessert. The waiter had just walked away when Mallory folded her hands on the table and leaned in. So, Brandon, she said, her tone casual, eyes steady. How is the video going? He blinked. The what? The video, she repeated. You know, the prank. The social experiment. Whatever branding your friends were planning to slap on it. Brandon's heart stumbled. Mallory smiled, not coldly, but not kindly either. Do you want to know how? I knew. He said nothing. First date, your friend was filming across the bar. Second date, the waiter recognized you from your podcast and asked if it was for content. You hesitated. Today, you keep checking your phone like you were waiting for someone to signal something. Brandon swallowed hard. And yet, she continued. I came anyway. Why? He asked, voice low. Because I was curious, she said. Curious to see if you would keep pretending, or if you would eventually tell me. Brandon looked away, shame prickling at the back of his neck. I was not going to upload anything, he said quietly. Not anymore. Good, she said, leaning back. Because if you had, I would have had your sponsors pulling out by morning. He looked up, startled. Mallory tilted her head. I might not have your kind of money, Brandon, but I do have friends, lawyers, and a very popular blog. A pause. Wait, you blog? She smiled again. About dating. About respect. About dignity. I even have a whole series called Beautifully Broken Pranks. You were going to be episode 11. Brandon let out a breath. Half amusement, half disbelief. So, I was your content? Looks like we were each other's, she said, raising her glass in a mock toast. Brandon did not know what to say. He had walked into this thinking he held the power, but now, staring at her confident posture, hearing the steel behind her voice, he saw the truth. He had never been the one in control. She had known from the beginning, and still, she came because she saw something in him worth seeing, maybe even saving. The next day, she was gone. No message. No warning. No trace. Brandon tried not to overthink it at first. Maybe she was busy. Maybe she needed space. But by the second day, without a single text, nothing but silence, he began to feel it first. It was pride that made him restless. Then confusion. But soon, it became something deeper. Something heavier. He missed her. Not just the banter. Not the challenge. He missed the way she made everything feel honest. Real. He called once. Straight to voicemail. He texted. No reply. He went to the cafe where they had joked about overpriced muffins and hipster chairs designed to discourage comfort. She was not there. The barista had not seen her in days. He searched her blog again. Still live, but no new posts. Even the section called Beautifully Broken Pranks remained on episode No episode 11. No mention of him. He had thought he might become content, that she might roast him in public, use their story as some viral tale of hot guy humiliated by confident woman. But she did not. Instead, she left him in the one place he never expected to be. Unseen. It was humbling in a way nothing else in his life had ever been. Brandon found himself walking aimlessly one afternoon. No driver, no assistant. Just sneakers and a hoodie. Trying to move without destination. He passed a bookstore and paused. Inside, through the glass, he could see a little reading area. Cushioned chairs. A poster about a poetry night. And on one shelf, a copy of Pride and Prejudice with a sticky note that read, "Still the queen of slow burns." It was her handwriting. He was sure of it, but she was not inside. Just the note. Just the ghost of her wit. That night, he sat alone in his apartment for the first time in weeks, staring out the window at the city skyline that used to impress him. He played back every moment, every smirk, every truth she had dropped like it cost her nothing. Even when it meant everything. He scrolled through his gallery and found a blurry photo he had taken by accident. Her laughing at a joke she pretended was not funny. He stared at it for a long time. Brandon Chase had built a life around being wanted, admired, desired. But Mallory was the first person he had truly wanted back, and now, she was gone. Brandon had never searched for anyone in his life. People always came to him. But now, he found himself retracing every step they had shared. The tiny cafe with terrible seating. The bookstore with the sticky note. The park where they once debated whether pigeons had personalities. She was nowhere. He even returned to the rooftop bar where it had all started. This time alone. No friends. No bets. Just memories and guilt. The bartender recognized him. No camera crew tonight. Brandon shook his head. No more show. He sat at the far end, sipping mineral water, his thoughts looping. He replayed every conversation, every expression Mallory gave him that he had misread. He remembered the way she always paused before answering, like she weighed her words carefully, like she wanted him to hear the truth even if he was not ready to listen. He remembered the last thing she said before she disappeared. I was curious to see if you would eventually tell me. He never did, and now she was gone. Brandon opened his phone and found the message thread between them. Still nothing. But as he stared at the empty screen, he began typing, not to send, but to say what he should have said before. You were never a joke. You were the only real thing I have known in years. He did not send it. He just saved it. A reminder. The next day, he sat down with his publicist and canceled 2 appearances. I need to figure something out, he said simply. Personal? She asked. Yes. And important. He stopped by the city library, where Mallory once mentioned she had worked part-time in college. No one recognized her name. He checked local blogs, hoping for a new post under her usual handle. Nothing. Finally, in frustration, he called Tyler. "Do you remember that prank idea?" Brandon asked. Tyler laughed. "You mean the one you disappeared on halfway through? I need a favor." Tyler paused. "Okay, now I am listening." Brandon explained everything. The truth, the fallout, what Mallory had said, how she had known, how she had let him continue anyway. Tyler was silent for a moment. "So, you fell for her?" Brandon exhaled. "I did. Because she was different?" "No," Brandon replied. "Because she was honest. And I was not. She saw me before I saw myself." It was not a dramatic moment. There was no storm, no tears. Just quiet realization, like bricks settling into place. "She deserved better than the game I played," Brandon said. "And the worst part is, she gave me a chance to stop. And I didn't." Later that week, he received a package at his office, no return address. Inside, a single muffin, blueberry, and a handwritten note that read, "Sometimes silence says everything." There was no phone number, no hint of where she was, but it was enough. Brandon knew what he had to do. He opened his laptop and started writing. Not a text, not a message, not a public post, not a confession. He wrote about the prank idea, about how it began, about how he met someone who should have walked away but stayed long enough to challenge him, to expose him, to make him grow. He ended the post with one simple line: "Her name is Mallory. And if you are reading this, I am not playing anymore." The post went viral within 48 hours, not because it was dramatic, but because it was raw, real. He included no photo of her, no clickbait, just the truth. And for the first time in his adult life, Brandon Chase waited, not for attention, not for praise, but for a reply that might never come. And still, he waited, because he had finally become someone who could. The ballroom was packed with the kind of people Brandon used to blend in with. CEOs, influencers, investors, all gathered under crystal chandeliers for a tech award ceremony he no longer cared much about. He stood near the stage in a tailored black suit, hands folded, eyes distant. A part of him still hoping, still wondering. He had almost given up when the host took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," the man boomed, "we now invite Brandon Chase to the stage to accept the Impact Innovation Award for his recent work in transparency and ethics in digital media." Brandon stepped forward, applause echoing around him. But he felt disconnected, walking as if through fog. He took the microphone. "Thank you," he said, "but I do not deserve this alone." He paused, then added, "This award should go to someone who taught me the difference between noise and meaning. Someone who made me face myself when I least wanted to." The crowd stirred, murmuring. Then, from the back of the room, a voice called out. "Well," the voice said, dry and clear, "this is getting awfully dramatic." Heads turned. Brandon turned. Mallory stood at the rear entrance, wearing a navy blue dress, curls pinned up with casual elegance. Her eyes sparkled, not with softness, but with something better, fire. She walked forward slowly, not rushed, not embarrassed. "I in control." Gasps rippled through the crowd, many recognizing her from the viral story. Cameras turned. Mallory reached the stage, took the second microphone from the podium, and faced the audience. "Hi," she said. "I am Mallory. You may know me as the prank." Laughter erupted. Brandon froze, unsure. "But here is what you do not know," she continued. "I knew from the beginning. I let it happen, because sometimes the best way to break a game is to play it better." Brandon stared, caught between awe and regret. Mallory looked at him. "Brandon Chase tried to use me for a social experiment," she said, then smiled. "And somehow, I ended up becoming his." More laughter, "But," she added, her voice softening, "he changed. Not because I shamed him, but because he chose to." She turned to him. "And I am here now, because I believe in second chances. Real ones." Brandon stepped toward her, offering his hand. "Can we start again?" he asked quietly. "No cameras. No lies. Just dinner." She raised one eyebrow. "Only if I get to pick the restaurant this time." He laughed, heart full for the first time in weeks. "Deal." And the crowd? They applauded, not for the award, but for the woman who walked into a joke and walked out with the punchline, the applause, and the heart of the man who never saw her coming. 3 weeks later, they met again, this time at a tiny diner on the east side of the city. Mallory's pick. No reservation needed. No cameras in sight. Just cracked leather booths, old jukebox music, and the smell of Real butter on griddles. Brandon arrived early again, but this time not to impress. He sat nervously in his seat, fidgeting with the corner of the laminated menu until he heard her voice. "You look like you're about to be interviewed by the FBI." He looked up, smiled. "Depends. Are you here to interrogate or just make me sweat?" She slid into the booth with a grin. "A little of both." This time, there was no stage, no audience, no performance. Just two people, face to face. Honest. Open. They ordered milkshakes and split a plate of waffles. They laughed. More easily now, still teasing, still playful, but with less armor. Mallory still had her sharp wit, but her eyes softened when she looked at him. And Brandon, for once, listened more than he spoke. He had learned how much power silence could hold. "I meant everything I said in that speech," he told her after a quiet moment. "I know," she replied. "That is why I showed up." "You scare me, a little," he admitted. Mallory smirked. "Because I am unpredictable." "No," he said. "Because you see through everything. Even me." She stirred her milkshake with the straw. "It is not a superpower, Brandon. It is just paying attention. Something most people forget how to do." He nodded. She continued, voice softer now. "You were a jerk. At first. I know. But you also showed up. You apologized. You changed the script." He looked down, then back at her. "And you forgave me. Why? Because you did the one thing most people never do." "What's that?" "You stopped hiding." They sat in silence for a beat, letting the words land. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small envelope. "For you." Brandon opened it slowly. Inside was a napkin, with a doodle of him holding a boom mic while tripping over a heart-shaped muffin. He laughed, genuinely, shaking his head. "I am never living this down." Mallory leaned back, victorious. "Nope, not ever." Later that year, the two of them launched a project together, a nonprofit media initiative to mentor young creators on responsible storytelling. They called it Second Draft. Their first video? A sit-down conversation titled, "What Happens When the Joke Backfires and Saves You Instead?" Brandon sat on camera, no edits, no polish. He told the story start to finish. Mallory joined him halfway through, teasing, correcting his timeline, laughing at his dramatic retellings. The video went viral, but this time, it was not because of outrage or shock. It was because it was real. Their dynamic became its own kind of magic. Viewers loved how she teased him, and how he led her. They loved how he adored her without ever making her size the punchline. They loved how she never let him get away with anything, but still chose him. Their comment section filled with stories. Thousands of people writing in, "I cried. I saw myself in her. I needed this." They replied to as many as they could. And through it all, they stayed grounded. They still met every Friday at the same diner, still shared milkshakes and waffles, still joked about muffins and bad ideas. One night, Brandon slipped a ring box across the table inside a takeout bag labeled extra syrup. Mallory opened it, blinked, and smirked. "If this is another prank, it is not even original." He smiled nervously. No cameras, no script, just one question. She did not say yes right away. She took her time. She teased him for 2 whole minutes before finally whispering, "Yes." They never became perfect, but they became true. And that, more than views, more than headlines, was everything. We love hearing your voices. Tell us, where in the world are you watching from? Have you ever judged someone too soon, or been judged yourself? Drop your story in the comments. We read every single one. And if this story touched your heart, hit that subscribe button for more love stories, soul-stirring stories, emotional stories, and heartwarming stories that remind us of what truly matters.